Hi, I'm Dan Leonard.
And I'm George Whittam.
And this is VoiceOver
Body Shop.
or VOBS. Okay, good. Tonight, we got a great show. Brian Sommer is going to be joining us from San Francisco, a character actor and a coach. We're going to have some fun with him. We're going to do DawView 2016.
That's right. And I'll talk about the new Mac OS and again, why you shouldn't install it yet.
All right. Coming up on VoiceOver Body Shop.
Two men, twin sons from different mothers, with a passion for voiceover recording technology and the desire to make recording easy for voiceover actors everywhere. Together, in one place, George Whittam, the home studio engineer to the stars, a Virginia Tech grad with an unmatched knowledge of all the latest gear and technology in voiceover today. Dan Leonard, the home studio master, a voiceover actor with over 30 years experience in broadcast and recording, and a no-holds-barred, myth-busting attitude for teaching you how easy it is. Together, finally, to bring you all the latest technology, the superstars of voiceover today, and leading the discussion on how to make the most of your voiceover business. This is VoiceOver Body Shop. And now, live from their super secret multimedia studio in Sherman Oaks, California, here are George Whittam and Dan Leonard.
Hello there. I'm Dan Leonard.
I'm George Whittam.
And this is VoiceOver
Body Shop.
or VO.
BS.
There's no BS tonight because you're not watching the debate. You're watching us live.
Yeah.
Ooh, and the thing is, now you can watch the debate.
Sure.
Just turn off the sound because
right.
you're going to learn more from the body language of the candidates than you are by whatever garbage they're talking about.
It's true.
So,
Mudslinging fest. Yeah.
All right. Anyway, we've got lots of cool stuff tonight. I've got the VOBS Vox News. We've got DawView 2016. We've got a fabulous guest. Brian Sommer is going to be joining us from San Francisco, California.
On the Zoom feed.
That way.
Yeah.
On remotely on Zoom, and we're going to talk about the stuff he does.
And VOBS, and the reason why we say don't use new OSs, which we talk about every year whenever there's a new Mac OS. Every single year, we say the same thing over and over. Anyway,
but you're going to say it in a new and unique way.
In a new and unique way, yeah.
Right. Because it's a new and unique OS.
Sure.
Okay. Close enough. I can tell you're in a great mood tonight. All righty. And now, the VoiceOver Extra VOBS News, brought to you by VoiceOver Extra, your one-stop resource for voiceover success. I'm going to lower myself a little bit. There we go. For September 26th, the VoiceOver Extra News, logo ripoff. You know, there are a number of ways to rip off a voice actor. For example, scammers will use an audition as the finished job and not pay for it. Lure the unsuspecting talent into a pay scam. Waste a person's time on bogus auditions. Do you have more to share? But steal a logo? It happens. Now, not often, but often enough to make you wonder what to do about it. For instance, John Florian at VoiceOver Extra says he's currently seeing LinkedIn suggestions to connect with a voiceover agency in Turkey. And imagine my quote, delight, he says, at noticing a portion of my own logo being used by this company. I used a trademark drawing of a mic in a red circle as a standalone art on VoiceOver Extra hats and calendar listings for VoiceOver Extra webinars. And the agency in Turkey is using that art with the addition of the letter V. What should John do? Quite likely the agency saw this art online, and even though it's clearly trademarked, considered to be free art for the taking. So John says, I just shrug. This isn't a rampant offense, but in a new article in VoiceOver Extra, also notes that while apparently rare, the theft of art, which we've paid money to create, is a concern. For instance, last week, VoiceOver talent coach Terry Daniels ignited a firestorm of messages at VoiceOver Pros group he administers on Facebook. When he vetted frustration at a voice actor who adopted Terry's logo and inserted his own name on that logo. Fueling the fire for Terry was the fact that it wasn't the first time this individual had done so. Even today, this thread of more than 100 messages continues to balloon with comments of disgust and suggestions on how to stop this kind of theft. Of course, typical voiceover humor laces the rants as well. Now, Terry's opening salvo said, in part, someone in our community continues to plagiarize blogs, comic strips, logos, etc. today. He had my logo in the timeline cover of his business page, but removed my name and added his own. I don't understand any of this. It's maddening. Some ensuing comments suggested suing the repeat offender, yet it was also noted that damages would be hard to prove. Mostly, there were moves to unfriend and block the individual from pages and to resort to that voiceover's questionable marketing, to say the least, to agents he says he uses. And on the lighter side, we saw this, quote, "This kind of thing is rampant right now. Just the other day, it was brought to my attention that some guy named Antonio Banderas has been ripping off one of my signature voices since before I was born. Unbelievable!" End quote. So while this particular incident is isolated to one individual, the theft of intellectual property on the internet is not rare. What should we do about content being copied and used without our permission? We've asked attorney, voice actor / actor Rob Siglin-Paglia, author of a popular voiceover legal book, to advise, and his article on how to protect your brand will appear soon. Meanwhile, this article and many hundreds more are available now at voiceoverextra.com, your one-stop resource for voiceover success.
All right.
Mr. Whittam.
I was wondering if that topic was going to come up today on the show, because that was...
I unfriended this guy.
Man. Yeah, that was like all over the Facebooks.
Yes,
for sure. That was a big thing. Mac OS Sierra came out, I think it was last week. And unless you've just bought a brand new Mac, then you probably don't have it. And if you do have it, I'd sure love to know how it's going. Because generally we are of the mind of do not install something that just came out, because you are basically beta testing software.
Until we put the all safe beacon on.
Yeah. You know, we try to sound the all safe beacon here, but we can't know what software and hardware you're using on your system. So we'll say the same thing we say every time: back up your system. You should at the very least have Time Machine backing up your Mac. And if not, at least beyond that, some kind of offsite backup or a system clone backup before you start backing or start installing an update. So Mac OS Sierra came out, and if you're running a Mac that's an iMac late 2009 or newer, a MacBook late 2009 or later, a MacBook Air 2010 or later, a Mac Mini mid 2010 or newer, or a Mac Pro mid 2010 or newer, chances are you're being bugged to install Mac OS Sierra. And I would say, you know, it's one of those things where if you need a function that is included in OS, the new OS, to do your job, then tread carefully. But I'd say based on those features I'm seeing in the software, there's basically nothing a working voice actor needs in the new OS to get their work done. Yeah, there are cool things like if you have an Apple Watch, you can do auto lock. So if your watch is, you know, connected to the computer and you're near the computer, it will allow you to just not type in a password. Okay, is that worth risking taking down your studio to add that feature?
Nah.
Probably not. If you've got second, third, fourth Macs, you know, that you can play around with this stuff, you know, go for it. But, you know, there's things that have to do with Apple Pay. Okay, that's for buying stuff. That could be helpful, but it's not a game changer. iCloud Drive, you can take advantage of the Mac OS Sierra's ability to automatically sync your desktop and document folders. I mean, at this point, if you're not already doing that through other means, you probably aren't that interested in doing it at this point, because
probably not.
I've been using Dropbox to do this for like 5 years, frankly. So it's like, wow, finally. And I know I'm coming off like this snarky guy who hates Apple. I'm using a MacBook, mind you. I do like Mac OS and I do like their products. Just you don't need the new stuff all the time. iTunes 12.5. Whoopee. Don't really need that. Messages update. Okay, there's some new bells and whistles sewed into the new Messages app. So if you're using iOS 10 and you want to be able to have everything that iOS 10 does on your Mac, okay, you know, OS Sierra, but chances are you're probably not on iOS 10 yet. Optimized storage, what it does is it will automatically offload files from your computer and put them in the iCloud for you in case if they're files you haven't used in a while.
I can see the usefulness.
That could be cool. I use a little app called O-Drive.
Yeah.
And O-Drive lets me do that automatically. I can set anything in my Dropbox folder to automatically desync or unsync
that
after
could be helpful.
a month.
See that, yeah.
So it keeps my MacBook Air's drive, cleaned off because there's only 256 gigabytes of storage on my MacBook Air. My Dropbox currently has, I think, 700 gigabytes of stuff on it or something. So I would never have enough space if I didn't use a utility like that. So the fact that they're building that into iCloud, and if you're an iCloud user, pretty cool. But, again, not something that you're missing if you haven't already used it. And the rest of it's having to do with iPhone, iPhotos app, Siri on the Mac.
Ooh.
Okay. Voice command. Been doing that on Apple or Google for a couple of years now. Tabs.
I know how you love tabs.
I do love tabs.
I don't open things. You've got like 20 billion tabs open on yours.
Addict. Universal clipboard. That's kind of neat. You can clipboard something from your phone and it will then paste on your laptop. I guess that's kind of cool. Volume control improvement. Now, this looks like the most useful thing. It's the bottom thing in this article on Forbes.com. Volume control improvement. Now, when you click on the little volume control icon, right below the slider is a list of which thing you're actually controlling. Finally, there used to be an add-on thing you could get that for the Mac that would do this. They finally put it into the OS itself, but that's kind of cool. So if you have more than one thing plugged into the Mac that provides sound output, you can choose which one you're controlling. Isn't that crazy when you're playing with the volume buttons on the keyboard and you're going, which thing am I controlling? You have no idea.
That's true.
That's kind of nice they added that. Yep. So anyway, give it a little bit of time. Don't need it quite yet. Eventually, we'll install it on one of our systems and kind of,
And if you see smoke coming from Southern California, you'll know it was not the right system.
We'll put it through its paces at some point, but it's not quite time yet. At least wait till version like 10.12.2 or 0.3 or something.
0.9.
Yeah. That is my Mac OS Sierra rant.
All right. Well, we don't want to rant about these guys. We need to thank our sponsors.
That's right.
Because they're a great bunch of guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like Harlan Hogan.
That's right. Harlan Hogan. And we've got sponsors including as well as I look for my text voiceover extra.
That one there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Edge Studio, your employers.
Source Elements.
And the Rehearsal app, which you can find at rehearsal.pro.
That's right. And they also produce the product VO to Go.
That's right. And Antland Productions.
Yeah, man.
All right.
Hey, that logo looks pretty good. I might want to use that. Never mind.
Okay, never mind. All right, we've got Dawview 2016 coming up next, and then we've got a great guest. Brian Sommer will be joining us from San Francisco. So don't go away. Stay right here. We'll be right back.
Hiya, VO friends. You sure you ain't booked a VO gig in 7 years? And your demo is so old that you can hear the clicks from the stock music records? And you hear so much tape hiss that you run to the sink to see if the faucet is running? And the engineer used so much echo on your voice that it sounds like it was recorded in the Grand Canyon? And the scripts seem a bit dated too, advertising the new and improved 1938 Plymouth Road King? Is that what's been troubling you, Bunky?
Well, lift your head up high and take a walk in the sun. Your demo can be killer, too. Just contact Uncle Roy at AntlandProductions.com and book yourself a shiny new killer demo. Show your stick-to-itiveness and show the world you'll never give up, never give up, never give up. That dream.
6 p.m. Pacific, 9:30 Newfoundland.
You're still watching VOBS?
You should know what Source Connect is because it's a great backup for ISDN. And it's also becoming a tool that's going to probably replace ISDN for many users who no longer can get ISDN. It's definitely the kind of thing you want to get if you want to level up in VoiceOver and be working at a higher level that requires tools like this to connect to other studios and be directed in real time. If you want to get Source Elements now, you can get a 15-day free trial. You can go to source-elements.com and get signed up right away. You can buy it as a one-time license, or you can also get it as a subscription. And a lot of people like the subscription idea because of it's a smaller commitment up front to start using it. So check it out, source-elements.com, and we'll be right back with Dan and DAWView 2016.
Wow. This is VOBS? Are we at minus 4 dB? We're at minus 4 dB on VOBS.
And now it's time for DAWView 2016. We are going to talk about setting recording levels. We're not going to talk about the weather. We're going to talk about how you set proper recording levels. And it's important to understand because people tend to get this one wrong all the time. Because, George, we get lots of stuff. People send us stuff, and we find that the audio levels are usually too low. And that people need to, that you've got to give yourself lots of output in order to make sure that people can hear your audio. Because if they can't hear your audio, you're just hanging out in your office and not doing a whole heck of a lot with your career.
Yeah, a lot of clients don't know the difference between what sounds low and what really is low, and you'll really screw them up if you give them levels that are outside of those parameters.
There's no question. So we have to mention a couple of terms here. And number one is dynamic range. Now, what is dynamic range? Now, dynamic range is how much you're modulating. And I'm going to tell you guys something that perhaps you didn't understand before. But first off, dynamic range is the highs and lows, at least what they look like on your waveform. The fact of the matter is that's not up and down as far as your volume. Some people think that, this is loud and that this is soft, but it's not that way at all. It actually is. You're looking down at it. It's logarithmic. It's modulation, positive and negative both ways. You're looking down at it. It's not loud and soft except when it's in the middle here. So what it's showing you is a time-based working of as time goes by and your voice is modulating up and down, it's up, down, and then up again. It's just doing it so you can see it as a continuous waveform. So don't worry about, those look really low. My volume must be low. No, your volume is low only if it's at 0, or the nominal line, as we like to call it. So how is it that we set our levels properly? Well, here's the best analogy I like to use. Your computer and your audio system is like a hose. And what this hose does is it has pressure coming behind it. It's got water coming out of your house. And what you have to do is turn the spigot and let the water pressure come out. And that's the same analogy with your audio. You've got audio coming from your audio interface, your digital interface, which takes your analog audio from your microphone and turns it into the ones and zeros that your computer understands. And it sends it that way into your computer. And your computer has to accept all of it. And sometimes some people, and sometimes Windows, because we all know what we feel about Windows. Sometimes Windows says, I don't like the settings you have. I'm just going to turn down the spigot again. Automatically, without thinking about it. Well, the computer's thinking about it. You're thinking about, stop doing that. But the computer will turn down its own volume, and you've got to adjust that just to make sure. So every morning when you come to your computer and you want to start recording, it's always good to check this. So here's what you do. In Windows, if you happen to be in Windows, I'm sure you're familiar with this. You go into your sound properties and you make sure that there's no feedback. Don't ask me how that happened. Okay. But you make sure that this is checked as your default, your microphone or your interface. And then you talk into your microphone. And then hopefully you'll see this little green meter here work. Okay? Now, after that, to make sure that you're getting the right level, you then go into the recording properties up here and go to listen, and you get this mixer here. And sometimes the microphone on the mixer is really, really low. And so what you got to do is go to that and turn it back up. But go back to that shot again. Back to this one, back to that one. Okay. This one here, you want to take this microphone level and bring it up, or your interface, if it's listed as your interface, and you want to bring that up to probably 90%. Now, sometimes you set it really low. It's really weird in Windows, which is why we recommend that you use a Mac, because with a Mac, you just plug in your interface and you talk into your microphone and you set your level from your interface. I don't know why it's doing that. Probably because the mouse is on top of that thing. Anyway, so that's how you set your levels from there, and you do it from your interface. And from your interface right here, usually some people, you know, when I'll talk to people about setting their levels, they'll say, well, where do I set it? I go, well, where is your input gain set? And usually they'll go, give me a clock face. 12 o'clock. Okay. Try taking it up to 2 o'clock. All right. There's 2 o'clock. And then record and see if you're getting a big enough waveform. If not that, try 3 o'clock. And that way, usually that between 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock is going to make sure that that's working right. So that's how you set your levels properly. And don't confuse the up and down as up and down. It's really side to side. Like it's an earthquake graph. What do they call that? A seismograph. Thank you. Thank you to our studio audience for getting me that one. So that's DAWViews 2016. Any thoughts on that, Mr. Whittam?
Oh, yeah. I mean, do you have any rules of thumb for setting levels for certain kinds of genres, like a commercial versus an audiobook?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're going to be talking really, really loud, one of the things you can do is there's on a lot of microphones, not on this particular microphone, but on a lot of microphones, you'll have a 10 or 20 dB pad. Mm-hmm. And you can hit that and you can talk really, really loud. And I was, of course, demonstrating that this afternoon when we were recording the new promos that we were doing.
Yeah.
But like if you're doing car commercials, otherwise set your levels at that rate and talk in a conversational way. Mm-hmm. And make sure that you're getting enough volume out of it. You don't want huge waveforms. You want it to be peaking between -6 and -4 to give an engineer plenty of headroom to work with your audio when you send it out to them. But not these little tiny guys.
Yeah. What do you do when you catch yourself? Maybe you record like a whole chapter of a book, and you realize you've clipped. What do you do?
Then you go back and you re-record the chapter, because once you clip, it's always clipped.
Yeah.
And some people will say, well, maybe you should have a limiter on there. Mm-hmm. And probably some audiobook narrators probably do. Yeah. But I'd say for just normal, if you're doing auditions and stuff like that, don't record too loud.
That's a cool special effect. If only we knew why it was happening at random.
If only we did.
Andrew, are you doing that?
No, he's not doing anything.
No, I'm just busting his chops. I know he's not doing it.
Anyway, Brian Sommer is going to be joining us here on VoiceOver Body Shop in just a couple of minutes, so don't go away. We'll be right back.
This is John Bailey, the Epic Voice, and you're watching VOBS.TV, Monday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9:30 Newfoundland.
Best microphone to use. You have to have a preamp. You need a soundproof booth. This software is the best. Your audio must be broadcast quality. Consult with someone who knows the truth, someone who's been there, in the trenches, doing voiceover for over 30 years. Someone with unparalleled experience with voiceover studios, who's worked with hundreds of voice actors and designed hundreds of personal studios. He knows how to teach and cares about your success. In one of the harshest environments known to voiceover, your home. Dan Leonard, the Home Studio Master. Separate myth from fact and get a handle on your personal voiceover studio. Contact the Home Studio Master at homevoiceoverstudio.com. Drop off a specimen of your dry audio for a free analysis.
All right, we are back here on VoiceOver Body Shop, and we have to talk about a good friend of ours. Mm-hmm. David H. Lawrence the 17th. He's been on our show a couple of times. He tends to just show up every now and again. But one of the great things he has is a product called the Rehearsal app. And the Rehearsal app is a great tool to have if you are an actor, and by the way, as voice actors, we are all actors. Even if it's for a short audition or something like that, you want to make sure you can memorize the script, probably as you're driving to a studio, or if you want to make sure you're recording it and you've got time to record an audition, best to learn the copy before you go and record it, because that way you don't have to read it, and therefore it'll sound like you're saying it. And that's the great part about the Rehearsal app, which you can get at rehearsal.pro. It's an iPhone app. It works great, and it's got 150 other features which are just too hard to explain. You have to buy it, check it out, make sure it's something. Each one of these features can benefit you in some way, and one of them is that you can record your voiceover auditions on it and send it out from Rehearsal app. So go over to rehearsal.pro and purchase this amazing app for your iPhone, and it will help you be a better actor, a better voice actor. And I'm not sure if it'll help with your cooking at all, but you never know. There might be a good commercial for cooking, and you'll learn more. So go over to rehearsal.pro and check it out.
He can have a show these days.
Questions. That's pretty interesting. That's okay.
So we'd have a little fun with you tonight.
Yes.
We'll make it up as we go.
Well, that's okay. I memorized them because I used Rehearsal app. Anyway, joining us is Brian Sommer. Welcome to the show, Brian.
On my computer, do I use the hot water or the cold water?
Use the hot. Absolutely. Okay. You want to make sure it's lukewarm at least.
That's how much I know about the technical end of the business. And that's why, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, listen to me, because this is true. A good engineer is the best thing to have at a session, period.
And if you can't get one of them, you can hire one of us.
Yeah. God bless you guys. Well done.
Anyway, we'll start from the top of that question, the first question.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Now it sounds like your interest in voiceover started at a fairly young age, and tell us how that happened.
Yeah, I like to say that it all started at Disneyland. As a kid, I went there quite often, and I still do go there. And listening to the fantastically talented voice work at that park, Paul Frees and Thurl Ravenscroft, Eleanor Audley, and Verna Felton, all these great, fantastic golden age of radio people who learned their craft during that wonderful time, did a lot of work at that place. I was the kid who was walking along, in the late 70s, early 80s, with the camcorder, the big one. It's not the size of a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah, you'd carry it. It was like a boombox.
Yeah. You're bringing your own TV studio with you. And I had a microphone on it, and I generally would keep the lens cap on it for most of the day, because all I was doing was pointing that microphone at the speakers and recording this wonderful stuff. An old attraction that's no longer with us, Adventure Through Inner Space. Paul Frees did the narration for it. And that just captivated me. It was just an amazing job. Perhaps, to today's industry standards, a bit campy, but I loved it, and I still love it. And it really piqued my interest. What's this all about? People do this for a living? I still scratch my head about that question these days. But that's what really started it. It was all the great talent at Disneyland and those fantastic attractions.
Yeah. And the fact is George and I know, because we were at Disneyland once, and we were amazed. We were actually there together once.
Yeah.
Yes, we were there for a conference. Yes, and we were amazed at the sound quality that that Disney puts into
Impeccable.
Absolutely.
You'd
Yeah.
walk across the resort and the sound would change from one speaker to another. It'd be a totally different track.
But it'd be totally seamless.
Totally
though. Like,
seamless.
if they wanted the sound to follow you, it did. If they wanted it to be something different, it would transition totally seamlessly.
And it's appreciated all the more by guys of your caliber because that's what you're constantly. You've got your ears on constantly. So
it's not a good thing. Believe me.
But that's the wonderful thing about that place. It's the attention to detail and the atmosphere that's created by it. That's what sets them apart.
Yeah, because it's certainly not the cartoons, but anyway.
Sure.
Now you got yourself interested in this stuff, and you were fascinated by it. How did you go about achieving your goal of doing voiceover? There is a voiceover academy right just north of San Francisco in the little hamlet of Sausalito called Voice Tracks San Francisco, run by Samantha Paris. And a great cookie, too.
Absolutely true. In the the Milanos and the Sausalitos.
That's right.
Petridge Farms. Do you remember?
I do. Still eat them.
There you go. Samantha, who is the owner and ran the place, she used to be on a local radio station from time to time as a guest on the Ron Owens show on KGO. So she would talk about the school and voiceover, and it was always fascinating to me. And I took that number and I wrote it down, and God knows how many times I took that number and I threw it in my desk and just left it there. Growing up, 3 goofy brothers and myself sitting around the table, we were constantly doing voices and stuff like that. So finally one day I said, what the heck, pulled the number out, gave a call, started attending class, trained there for about a year, and then was picked up by the Stars Agency in San Francisco. And the rest, as they say, is history. Oh,
it wasn't that simple.
What was
really your big break? What was your moment where you knew you had gotten to the right place at the right time and were able to deliver?
Sure. I don't like using myself necessarily as the benchmark for people. It takes longer for other folks. It depends on so many different factors. I was at Voice Tracks for about a year, came out of that, was picked up by Stars. And honestly, it was my 10th audition with Stars, and I booked a Comcast campaign. And so that was about a year's worth of work for Comcast. And from there, it just kind of snowballed. I was doing radio commercials and things like that. But my absolute true love always has been, and the vast majority of my work is character work, video games and things like that. So that's really what I've enjoyed doing more than anything else. And with kind of that advent of that, real conversational guy, more and more into commercial work, I'm not working commercials half as much as I used to. It's more of the character work and announcer work.
Oh, okay. Now, character work is your favorite. What skills are really necessary to excel in that particular genre? Clearly, it's big time right now with video games and animation and stuff. But what does it really take to really train for that?
I think number one, you've got to have a great imagination. You think about all of the voice actors that have been interviewed over the years, especially the character voice actors that have been interviewed, and they have the exact same story. They did voices as a kid. They played, pranks on people by phoning them up and doing things. You did everybody's answering machine in the neighborhood, right? So that right there, that ability to play, if you become too much of an adult, I don't think you're going to do well as a character actor. You've got to have a lot of kid in you to be sure. But on the serious side, on the technical side, it's the ability to allow that character to speak through you. Dawes Butler, certainly one of my favorites, had a great mantra, and it's these are not voices, these are characters. So you have to remember every time you go into that studio, you're not just doing a voice and reading words in a voice other than your own. It really is a character speaking. They are a living, breathing entity. They have a reason for saying what they're saying. the motivation for it. You have to allow them to speak through you. So it's getting out of your own, well, it's getting out of your character's way and allowing them to speak through you. It sounds very spiritual and kind of weird, but you get the idea.
Oh, it makes complete sense. I mean, you know, it's, as you said, it's you've got to carry a character all the way through, and you need to know that character's motivations,
right,
and what it is that's driving them and stuff.
Absolutely.
But then there's creating characters. How does, you know, some people have their characters. Some of them we sort of grab from, you know, people in our lives. You know, like I do my Uncle Al every now and again, or I do so and so. I mean, you can jump around thinking about people you know as a great basis. But how do you go about building a character?
I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head. You know, you guys were talking about walking around Disneyland and listening to the audio out there. I walk around doing my errands all day and listen to people. There's just such a wonderful character palette out in the world. All you got to do is listen for it. Different accents and regional, twinges to the way people speak and things like that. There's all kinds of different examples. Seth MacFarlane, I think, mentioned that Peter Griffin's voice is based on a security guard at his old university. So it's just going out there and listening to this stuff and being a good mimic. You were talking about a good skill set. Being a good mimic is definitely one of those things that you would want to have in your tool bag, being able to listen and then interpret it. Voice actors, I think we only really have a handful of tones. You know, we can go really high or we can go really low, but everything in between that is just another step musically or tonally. But you take that tone and then you add vocal affectations to it. You add an attitude to it. You add motivation to it. So let's take Paul Frees, my personal idol. You could always tell it was Paul doing the voice. Tonally, you could always tell it was Paul. There wasn't a voice that Paul did that you can't hear Paul in. But Paul was such a great actor that all of his characters were completely different. So you take those tones and you add the attitude, you add the essence of the character to it, and that's what brings about a completely unique character.
Yeah. That guy for me is Mel Blanc.
Well, yeah,
absolutely,
because that's so distinctive, and it was such a part of my childhood. I know it's Mel Blanc, but he has such an incredible range of characters. But you know, it's Mel Blanc.
Yeah. For me, it was Mel Blanc and Dawes Butler.
You bet.
And you know, I mean, we watched all the great Hanna-Barbera cartoons in the '60s, and the
not so great ones.
It's very important, especially when I'm teaching, to honor those folks. And I think it's important for us to do it just for our own, just for the craft, is to understand where these things came from and the men and women that paved the way for us to do these great characters. You think about. Great example is Foghorn Leghorn, right? Yeah. Great Warner Brothers.
There you
go. Say.
And everybody, I guarantee you, 9 out of 10 people will say that was Mel Blanc. And it was doing Foghorn Leghorn, but it wasn't an original character.
Mm.
It was originally done on the old Fred Allen radio show by a guy by the name of Kenny Delmar, who was also an announcer. So Kenny Delmar actually came up with that character and that cadence and that way of speaking, son, you know, that kind of that stuttering thing. So Mel just took that and made his own character out of it, you know, with the giant chicken and things like that. So knowing where it comes from, I had a student doing a fantastic British kind of snobby sound. And I said, do you know where that comes from? Do you know what character you're doing, or do you know what actor you're doing? They had no idea. I said, you're doing a perfect impersonation of Terry Thomas.
Yeah.
And if the audience don't know, fantastic character actor, had the gap in the 2 front teeth there, was in, and my students get tired of hearing me say this. If you want to watch one of the best character actor showcases ever filmed, and some great voices too, watch It's a Mad World.
Mad World. Yes.
Everybody was in it. Everybody was in it, and such amazing talent and such variety in the voices of these great character actors from that time.
Yeah. My favorite British actor was Ronald Colman. 'Tis a far, far better thing I have done than I've ever done before.
Do you think
people would get him mixed up with Basil Rathbone a lot?
True.
He actually, I think, I don't remember which way it went, but I think Basil Rathbone originally did Sherlock Holmes on radio, and then Ronald Colman took over for him, or the other way around.
And then he did him in the movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you think it's important to know where these voices come from? Like when you pull something out that you maybe have heard at some time, but you don't know where it came from. Do you think there's some importance to knowing the lineage of the voice, the character that you're doing?
Sure. It's important to know where it came from. Number one, I think, just out of respect for the people that came before us.
Yeah.
And the people that did it before us. Billy West is very good at that. When he's doing, Ren and Stimpy, he's
Larry
doing
Fine.
a fantastic Peter Lorre kind of take on it.
Yeah.
That's where these things come from. And it's also important that you can go back and listen to them, learn things from them. We don't want to necessarily repeat history or just do a copy of it. We want to make them our own. But getting inspiration from them, getting technique from them, I think it's very important. We can just go in there and we can go blah, 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 do a funny voice and thank you very much, here's the check. Or we can be professional voice actors and know about our craft and understand it and appreciate it and respect it.
Right. Go back and watch a bunch of their stuff.
Absolutely.
So things that you can go research. Like if you want to do like Pete Smith. Are you familiar with Pete Smith?
I'm not. Please tell me.
Pete Smith used to do the newsreels. And you go,
sure.
That's right. Here he comes again. That sort of thing. That sort of voice. Sure. Pete Smith specialties, they were called.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go back. All this crap is on YouTube. I mean, if you know who somebody is, just type in Pete Smith and they'll get that. Mm-hmm. Here comes General So-and-so on the parade. That sort of thing. And you can listen and really tune that in. So if you know who did it, it's usually pretty easy to find it.
It's true. And, a lot of, we still hear it, whether it's the original or whether it's somebody doing an impersonation of it. We still hear it, and it's still part of our lexicon, if you will. And producers, when you get the specs for a job or something like that, they'll say, kind of like an old time newsreel guy,
right? But
they won't necessarily know the name of the person because all producers now are 19 years old. So
it's a bit of a problem, yes.
Hey, Brian, by the way, Maxine Dunn loves your cufflinks.
Oh, thank you very much.
Let's see those. Those are nice. Yeah.
Kind of a 1930s Egyptian motif going on this evening.
Sweet, man. Nice cufflinks.
I have the moniker of the best dressed voice actor in the Bay Area. While I appreciate that, we decided the fact that one has absolutely nothing to do with the other, and so we kind of say it's like being the most eloquent prostitute.
Ooh.
or the most graceful linebacker,
Yes. If anybody in our vast audience has a question for Brian Sommer about character voice acting,
or cufflinks,
or general voiceover fashion,
any sartorial skills that you may need,
exactly.
Does this tie go with blah blah blah?
Yes. If you're in the chat room, put it in the chat room. And I know Anthony, even though he's half asleep because he was traveling all night, from his daughter's wedding in Barstow, of all places, kidding. And he flew back to Michigan, back to Kalamazoo. But he's there, and he is now monitoring the chat room, and he will get that question to us, and we will ask it of Brian when we get into our next segment. But now you're coaching.
I am.
And you coach with the GVA, the Global Voice Acting Academy, and with Voice Tracks in San Francisco, where you say you got a lot of your starts at.
Correct. Yeah. It's kind of the circle of life routine. So I'm back teaching now, where I was a student. I'm teaching at Voice Tracks in San Francisco, and then also with the GVAA, a fantastic group that is putting together all of these wonderful coaches and making it available to people who aren't necessarily in a market where they can go down the street and go to a physical voiceover school. So it's fantastic that we're able to do that. And, you know, say what you will as far as how much talent somebody has or something like that, but it's not worth a damn unless you're sharing it. You know,
Right.
So to be able to sit down and see those light bulbs come on over a student's head, oh, it's like this. Yes, thank you very much. It's wonderful. And to be able to get that email from a student, I just booked my first job. You know, to get an email, I just got signed by an agency and things like that. It's just wonderful, and that's what makes it all worthwhile, to be sure.
Definitely teach. That's what teaching's about. Is when they come back and say, you know, you made a big difference in my life, and you know, it's like hitting the perfect golf shot. You know, it's like it'll make you come back next week. Yeah, and then play a terrible round. But so what sort of stuff do you teach when you're coaching? Any specific genres of work?
Yeah, it's strictly character stuff. You know, I'm certainly a big enough person to understand that there are people out there that are far better at other genres than I am. Narration, audiobooks, commercial, all that stuff. There are people that will hit it out of the park every time, and I leave that stuff to them. If you'd like to learn about characters, I'm always willing to chat, to be sure. So over at Voice Tracks, I have 5 or 6 different classes that I teach over there having to do with characters. And then GVAA, we just came up with, Christina just came up with a brilliant idea. Video game villains. We have a class coming up on, and I have a slip of paper, hold on, otherwise I'll get in big trouble. November 7th and November 14th. We have a video game villains class coming up because I have made a pretty decent career out of the guys that tie damsels in distress to railroad tracks and try to take over the universe while twirling their mustache.
Yeah. What are some of the games that you worked on where you've been a villain and other types of characters like that?
Well, it's about 250 video game titles these days. There's 300 plus characters, something like that as far as credits go. Walking Dead, Diablo 3, The Wolf Among Us, Hearthstone, which was another Blizzard. Watch Dogs 2 is coming out from Ubisoft. League of Legends. I'm thinking. All kinds of stuff from Telltale in the early days. Rift is another big title. I did some stuff for Bakugan, some stuff for Pokemon. Oh boy, and on and stuff.
Okay, that's a lot of stuff. George?
Yeah.
I'm just laughing because I saw an error message pop up on the computer. Nothing to pay attention to, mind you.
Step away from the computer. Nothing going on here.
After this break, we'll fix it. No, I had a question about improv. How big does that play into training to do character voices? And do you teach it or still take it? Or how's that playing?
Yeah, I still, myself, I never want to get to a point where I think I know everything. That's arrogant and really stupid. So I still take private sessions with people that I trust and respect, just so they can say, "What the hell were you thinking on that day?" So yeah, I do training, and just by teaching, you're training yourself because you're reestablishing the essentials in your own mind. But improv, I would say it's extremely important. One of the things I tell my students is some of the most important things we do as actors appear nowhere on the script. If you just go along and you read word for word the lines that they have written, that may not necessarily jive completely with your take on the character. So you've got to let that character speak. Let them speak the way they speak. And I tell them, you kind of know you're in the zone. You're really hitting on all 8 cylinders when you're at a session. And usually if you're doing a video game, you have the line and you'll usually do it 2 times or 3 times, and then they pick one. And if they like, then they say moving on, and you go to the next line. If you deliver a line and they get on the talk back and they say, okay, good, but it says da 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 da, and you said da 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 wa da da da, and you don't even realize you did it. That's when you're in the zone. That's when that character is speaking through you. And it's almost kind of an unconscious sort of a thing. They said it the way they felt most comfortable saying it. And 8 times, 9 times out of 10, they take that take instead of what's actually written on the page. So that, and also, pauses and breathing and hms and uhs and things like that, those don't appear on the script. those are the things that you have to bring. Those are the things that you have to do as the character.
All righty. Brian Sommer is our guest tonight here on VoiceOver Body Shop. Again, if you've got a question for him, throw it into the chat room and Anthony will get it to us and we'll talk a little bit more about it. And we'll be right back. So don't go away.
Learning never ends.
You continue to grow.
Edge Studio has grown. Pursue multiple disciplines in tandem and grow your career. We've added new courses in a new curriculum.
We picked the best coaches from the community of working voice actors.
A new technology division, engineering and consulting, led by George Whittam.
Follow your dream.
Sign up for advanced learning or register for an Introduction to Voice Acting or Foundation Studies program.
See it all now
at thenewedgestudio.com.
In a world of audio, two men knew what they were doing, or at least they have you convinced. They put the BS in VOBS.TV.
You know, last week we had Harlan Hogan on the show. And Harlan's a great guy, and he's got a great website that you should be going to buy all of your voiceover stuff, because he's got stuff there, not just microphones and headphones and all the other things he sells that are equipment-based, which are all perfect, especially his Signature Series stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But he also has all sorts of other things that you can go to VoiceOver Essentials for, because he's connected with Amazon.
That's right.
And you can get anything on Amazon. So any piece of voiceover equipment you want, best place to go is to voiceoveressentials.com, because not only can you just find Harlan stuff, which is fabulous, but also you can go to Amazon and buy whatever equipment you need, but you're buying it through his store. And they'll accept all credit cards, and it makes it real easy to get all the voiceover stuff you need.
Plus,
he
takes returns. I mean, he takes returns. So you can demo stuff out, make sure it's the right thing for you, and if not, he will take it back. It's return policies right there on the website. That's unusual for microphones these days. If you've shopped for mics, sometimes you're going to find out that getting a mic and being able to return it is not always so easy, and he makes that easy. Yeah, so it's risk-free shopping.
Yes, and that's the great thing about VoiceOver Essentials and Harlan. Integrity from the website, integrity from its owner, just a super guy, and you want to do business with him. So go over to voiceoveressentials.com, check out all his Signature Series stuff, check out all the books, check out everything he has, and know that you can get anything else you need from Amazon from voiceoveressentials.com.
And if you want to tell them where you came from, you can click at the bottom of our page.
Go down there somewhere.
Harlan in front of his voiceover, his what do you call that thing?
Booth Pro.
I just wanted you to say it. Okay. You can click on his Porta Booth Pro, and it will take you to his site, and he'll know you came from us. So that way he'll know you're watching us.
That's right, and that's all we need to know. We'll be right back. Brian Sommer, a little bit more coming up.
VOBS is still on? Seriously?
You're watching VOBS.TV. I don't know why. It's crazy what they do here. I think I'm going to go somewhere else and have a cheese sandwich.
And we are back, and our guest is Brian Sommer, joining us from San Francisco, the East Bay, actually. That's not literally San Francisco. That's like the other place. You know.
The neighbor across the pond, so to speak.
Exactly.
You guys have been interviewing me for almost 30 minutes and we're still on the air. That's good stuff.
We're impressed.
I'm surprised they haven't pulled the plug on me yet.
No, you're doing great.
Who's they? Who's the they you're referring to?
Yes.
The men in the black suits.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, we are our huge audience that has deferred from the debates and is watching you instead. So consider that a great honor. First question is from somebody we all know really well. J.S. Gilbert asks.
J.S. Gilbert!
Yeah, you can just yell across the bay to him over in South San Francisco.
Perfect.
Brian, how are you handling all of the crowdsourced auditions today, whereby you know that 40 or 50 agencies have been invited to read?
Somebody has to book the job. That's how I view it. Yeah. I mean, obviously there's all kinds of different, the rules have changed drastically over the last 15 years. And you have faith in your agent. I've got very good agents, and you just focus on your job, and that's trying to book that job, do the best read that you can. Somebody's got to book it. So I do my audition, send it, forget about it.
That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, what else are you going to do? Sure. David Gilbert asks, how do you rekindle that ability to play that you once had as a kid, but through life circumstances, you've somewhat lost that ability? I mean, it's part of growing up, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. That's, in my particular case, I don't have a problem saying I don't think I ever lost it. So that certainly helps, but it's always there. It's always inside you. Go out and play catch, go out and, go out to the backyard with nothing more than a loaded index finger.
Be around kids, huh?
Yeah. Use your
Maybe
imagination.
be around kids. That probably helps. Do you have grandkids or kids yourself?
No kids myself. I'm the perfect uncle.
You're your own kid,
which also helps. Kids come over, you play. Build a pillow fort, for God's sakes. Nobody's watching. Just go do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the science of play is actually a big deal. I wish I knew his name right now off the top of my head, but there's this fellow. He's probably in his 80s, and he teaches the science of play, like literally teaches it. Yeah. And he has like around his like house is like jungle gyms and all sorts of stuff. And he's out there playing on this stuff all day. He's really
seriously,
important.
If we did that a little bit more often, what an interesting world it would be.
That's true. Well, that's what we do every week here on Voice Over Body Shop. We're playing TV show. And
we are helping humankind right there.
We're playing TV.
At least we're trying. Devox asks, any stories about old timers and interesting mic techniques? Things that they did in the studio, for example, that you know about?
Not necessarily about mic techniques. I was recording in LA. I can't remember what the hell it was for. I came in and I had recorded at that particular studio before, knew the engineer. He knew me. He knew, my passion for the history of the business and things like that. So he comes running up to me and he said, Don LaFontaine just left. He was behind the microphone that you're about to talk at.
Wow.
And he said, and this is the story. And, anybody that I did not know Don personally, but anybody that saw Don interviewed or anything like that, he came across with that gruff, tough guy personality. But as I understand, he was an absolute teddy bear.
Yep.
Very generous man, and a huge loss to the community when he passed. But he said that Don came in, got a level. Don ran it once, and the director said, "Yeah, thanks, Don. Let's just." And he goes, "No, that was perfect," and he left.
He could get away with it.
He was probably right.
I was very privileged to get to work closely with him because I was his home studio tech for a couple of years.
Oh, fantastic!
And I witnessed him do that maybe once or twice during an ISDN session. Not that often, but he knew once in a while when it was time to stop reading it over and over and giving it different reads. I think
he would rarely decline a request if somebody emailed him or something. Hey, could you do? I've got this little podcast, or I've got a, it would be great for my sister's ringtone or something.
A wedding announcement.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he would do it,
and he'd ask, hey, don't worry about money. Donate to your favorite charity or something like that. And that's like you said, paying it forward and sharing it. It's so very important, I think.
This one comes in from Herb, and he says, really enjoying the statements about honoring the history of VO and the actors who have paved the way. So is it okay to reinvent a familiar character like W.C. Fields, or is it better just to stay with an impression? And I don't have to figure out what that means. What's the difference between an impression and a reinventing of? I don't know.
Sure.
Do you have an answer for that?
He'll explain.
Especially when we're talking about, I'll just use this analogy. When we're talking about accents, I always take my characters and I split them up into caricatures and characters. Characters are going to be more reality-based, more dramatic. Caricatures are going to be more of a cartoonish, or you take the highs and lows of a person, you kind of explode them. A really good example, if you want to do a character of William Shatner, listen to William Shatner. They want to sound alike, okay? They want to do ADR of a film that he was in. They need somebody to sound exactly like him. If you want a caricature of William Shatner, listen to Kevin Pollak, okay? Because he's doing an exaggerated version of Shatner. So I think it would, my first question would be, what does the project want? Does the project want a sound-alike of W.C. Fields? Well, if that's the case, then yes, you need to recreate his sound, his cadence. If they want a caricature of W.C. Fields, then it's off to the races. Have fun with it. Make it your own.
Not to be all semantical, but which of the reinventing is reinventing a caricature? Or...
I think what he's talking about is if taking W.C. Fields' basic tonality and basic personality and turning it into a different character that has that base to it.
Yeah.
I think is what he's talking about.
And an impression is really more of a voice match.
Right. A sound-alike. Yeah.
Right. Sound-alike.
Yeah. And you'll see that a lot in cartoons where they will take the impression or the spirit of a certain character. I can remember several cartoons. I think it was Cat Dog, where one of the characters was talking like this and was continuing, and that was his whole character. And I'm like, oh, he's doing Cary Grant.
Right.
Sure. You know, but but it was a very simplistic type of Cary Grant that he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Ren from Ren and Stimpy. That's oh, good Lord. His name just popped out of my head.
Good Lorry,
Peter
right?
Lorre.
Peter
It's
Lorre.
Peter Lorre.
And Stimpy was Larry Fine from the Three Stooges.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So there's clearly nothing new under the sun, but you can take these characters and make little adjustments with them. Maybe take their mannerisms, raise the tone up or lower the tone, or take it in a slightly different direction. And that's really how you create a fresh and original character, because it's all synthesis.
Right. There's a great exercise called bad celebrity impersonations. And you give a iconic celebrity or actor to somebody and say, do an impersonation of them. Well, they're probably not going to get it dead on, but what they're doing is they are going somewhere vocally that they may have not gone before. And you can create a brand new character from that.
That sounds like a great game for our next dinner party.
Oh man, that'd be a lot of fun.
Bad celebrity impersonations.
That would be a lot of fun. Maxine Dunn asks, is there any product or subject matter or game that you won't engage in? And how do you decide who you will work with?
Again, it's it's good to have great representation. So these projects and things are being looked at before they're even sent out. First of all, does your agent feel that you're in the wheelhouse? Do you have what the producers are looking for? I have received auditions with like a little notation. By the way, this has to do with XYZ. So if it's something that I felt strongly about, if it was just, obviously there's a certain level of violence in some video games, to be sure. But if it was just, violence for the sake of violence, that's a different thing. If it is violence for reasons of bigotry, if it's violence for reasons of whatever, then certainly, yeah, I would have to say no. I mean, the check is not worth my soul. So,
no question.
Yeah, like if it's a violent game that's based, like a violent act that's based in hate or something.
Right.
Sure. Exactly.
They were doing in Grand Theft Auto, there was a controversy, but they were actually taking gang members off the street.
Oh, is that right?
And having them record their voices and stuff.
Wow.
But again, I have played a lot of bad guys, and some of them are really bad. But the fact of the matter is, by the end of that game, that person has paid the price. So, we can get into a whole morality conversation, which is a completely different kettle of fish. But there always has to be an antagonist. There always has to be somebody to, if you take a great Disney movie and you take the villain out of it, you've got a bunch of animals and humans skipping and singing through the forest. Boring. So you take that antagonist, and that's what drives the story. That's what makes the hero the hero. They have to overcome the conflict that the protagonist, or the antagonist, I should say, creates. Yeah. So there's always going to be bad motivation for the villain. If it wasn't, he wouldn't be a villain. But what happens in the end, in the grand scheme of things, does the villain win and say, ha-ha, that kind of a thing? Or is what should happen happens?
Well, it is a great one to go out on, I think, from Jim Edgar. And he says, which characters that you voiced are your personal favorites?
It was Jim Edgar, by the way?
Yeah, Jim Edgar.
Jim Edgar, speaking of fantastic engineers, is a fantastic engineer from up here. Whenever something goes wrong with my stuff, I call Jim. So thank you for tuning in, Jim, and quite a good voice talent on his own right. Favorite characters? That's the classic question, and it's a toughie. If they're written well, if there's a really kind of an interesting quirk to them. Danny St. John I voiced from The Walking Dead. So here you are in this game that is set during a zombie apocalypse. And you're walking through and you're doing all these things and you're trying to survive. And then you come across this family where this guy is a little bit off, but you're not sure. So the thing is that he turns out to be a cannibal. In a zombie apocalypse, the person that you come across is a cannibal. I mean, it's like, double shot to the gut, right? So he had a very interesting, quirky, strange way about him. So when they're written well, it's like, give me more, give me more, give me more. That's just one off the top of my head, but there's been so many bad guys in my career. They're just so much fun because you get the best lines. You get to do whatever you want. It's very cathartic. So
really get your aggressions out.
Exactly. And, if somebody books a lead character, congratulations, go for it. Go out there and give it your best shot and give us a great performance. And it's wonderful that you got the lead, but give me the second bananas every single time. I love those characters. They're the ones that get the best lines. They're the ones that, when you come away from the movie, those are the ones that you remember. They go, oh, they said this, that was so funny, blah, blah, blah. The second bananas are just my favorite.
Yeah. And there's a lot more of them too.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, Brian, thanks so much for being on our show tonight and telling us a little about yourself and some of the fun work you do. If somebody wants to contact you because they need a really good coach like someone like you, how can they do that?
Certainly, if they're in the Bay Area, Voice Tracks is available to you. VoiceTracksSF.com. If you're not in the Bay Area, or if you'd like to do it through the magic of the interweb, you can go to the Global Voice Acting Academy, which is on the web, globalvoiceacting.com. I'm going to get in so much trouble for getting that wrong, I'm sure.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Academy, put that in your Twitter thingy and you'll be fine. And you'll find it. Otherwise, contacting me directly, brian@briansommer.com. We had a huge marketing meeting about that email just to come up with ideas as to what we would do.
Well, that one works pretty well. Well, Brian, thanks for being with us tonight. It's been absolutely fabulous hearing about you. And
wonderful to be here, guys. Great show. Thank you so much for having me on, and continued success with the project, guys. Great stuff.
Thank you. All righty.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, we'll be right back to clean things up with a big mop right after this.
Are we at -4 dB? We're at -4 dB on VOBS. Wow. This is VOBS? Yep, this is VOBS. Proving anybody can have a show these days.
Learning never ends.
You continue to grow.
Edge Studio has grown. Pursue multiple disciplines in tandem and grow your career. We've added new courses in a new curriculum.
We picked the best coaches from the community of working voice actors.
A new technology division, engineering and consulting, led by George Whittam.
Follow your dream.
Sign up for advanced learning or register for an Introduction to Voice Acting or Foundation Studies program.
See it all now
at thenewedgestudio.com.
And we are back, at least for a couple of minutes anyway. Great that all of you showed up tonight and celebrated voiceover with us, as opposed to celebrating our political system, which is not worth celebrating these days.
Doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, really. Coming up next week, we're not going to be here.
That's right.
Because it's Jewish New Year's, and I won't be here, and you won't be here either.
No, I won't.
It'll be just really hard to do a show with neither of us here. But we're working on getting Sylvia Villagrán, big time commercial voice actor, voice of the Democratic National Conference this year, or convention.
Speaking of politics.
Yes. Let's see. October 17th, our good friend Randy Thomas will be here talking about voiceover mastery. October 24th, we're going to have our WOVO Tech Committee Experts Roundtable.
Man, we haven't had a roundtable in a while.
No, we haven't. We've been, we've also haven't had a lot of people in studio, so it'll be good to get some people in studio again too. All these people who live in our neighborhood who could bike over to my studio.
A couple of these guys.
Yeah, I know. That'll be really cool. And then October 31st, we will not be here because it's Halloween and Ella outranks VOBS.
Yeah, this is a pretty high. This is a high holiday for 7-year-olds. That's about as high holiday as it gets. I think Halloween is actually starting to trump Christmas. It really is.
It certainly does that in the stores. In the end of August, it's like Halloween candy already.
Yeah.
Okay. November, hopefully, we're going to try and do studio month. We'll see how that's all coming together.
Yeah, Catherine's working on getting these studios lined up so we can go into the studios and do our shows remotely from some venerable studios. We'll announce the names when they're confirmed.
When they're confirmed.
But you will know
when they actually find out we want to be there. We'd like to thank our donors of the week, starting with Eric Aragoni, of course.
Of course. And we've had Patty Gibbons, Brian Page, George Whittam, that would be my dad. Thanks, Dad. Amanda Fellows, David Smith, Shelley Avellino, Thomas Pinto, Trey Mosley.
Yeah, Trey.
Jeff Devitt, Maureen Vogel, Eric Aragoni. Once I get to Eric, I know I've looped and we've gone back to the prior week.
All right.
So each time I will say Eric's name twice.
Yeah. What's going on at Edge?
Well, going on at Edge, well, there's a lot, but I think the main thing that I want to talk about is the fact that I'm going to be traveling next week and coming to New York City. So if you're looking at having someone come to your studio and you're in the vicinity of New York City, about an hour or so radius is good. You can definitely get a hold of us or me to book me for the studio at edgestudiotechnology.com. One word, edgestudiotechnology.com. And that's where everything related to technology at Edge is now located. So come get a hold of me. I'll be there October 3rd, 4th, and 5th in New York City.
Cool. Great opportunity for you to get some real expert help in your studio.
In the flesh.
In the flesh, where he'll come in and rip out every last piece of cable you have.
I love ripping out cables.
We both love doing that. Show logs. Jack DeGolia out there in the deserts of Las Vegas, still writing every word we have said on the show, and he will be writing it down this week as well, and it'll be on our show logs.
What podcast version of the show.
Oh.
If you're not listening to the show and you want to listen to the show because it gets really long, if you'd like the audio version, you can get it at Stitcher and iTunes and basically anywhere you can search for a podcast. Just type in VOBS and you should find it.
And hear all these great interviews while you're driving in your Volvo.
Yeah, and for those who are
Subaru.
listening to the show, and maybe you want to watch the show, because some of you probably have never even gone to the website because you just subscribe to VOBS on there and you've never seen us live. If you want to see us live or whatever, just go to VOBS.tv on Monday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific time.
Right. Or watch it on YouTube.
Or just watch it on YouTube.
Or just you can watch every episode. By the way, this was our 50th episode of VOBS, if you can believe that.
Cool.
Now, who was our guest on our 50th episode of when we were EWABS?
Oh, speaking of animation, wasn't that June Foray?
It was. Well, I believe just turned 100 this week or last week.
Did she take over 100? I don't know. Anybody know this?
We'll have to find out. We'll do the research.
Well, she was on the show. She was 95 or 96.
And that was 5 years ago.
Yeah, so you're probably right.
Of course I'm right. I'm never right when it comes to math.
You're never right.
No, not even close.
I'm right.
Let's see here. Send in your voiceover for the opening promo. We'll use it if it's good. Now, who was it tonight?
We had Chris Heward tonight.
That's right. Great job on that. It's got to time out perfectly, so make sure your timing is good.
Do your best.
That's right. Want to be in our studio? We actually have two lovely ladies with us tonight.
Yay.
So let's go to the studio cam if it's working.
Do we have studio cam?
We don't have the studio cam on?
Oh, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, we'll flip that. That'll become the studio cam. There we are.
It's George Whittam and Dan Leonard.
No. Liz Dineshru's with us tonight.
Hey, Liz.
Just happens to be in L.A.
Visiting from the other coast.
Oh, and we're so glad to have you here. Yes, and our dog. Who wants lots of attention. And Marlon Brockia, how are you doing, Marlon? Nice to see you too. If you want to be here, you don't need tickets.
Nope.
No, but you do need to let us know you're coming, which these two fine people have done.
We have to know how much hummus to get.
Yes, and vegetables and stuff. So it's very, very important. Write to us at theguys@vobs.tv. And
subject audience.
Subject audience.
Because we get so much email.
It just piles up.
All right, it's not that much.
All right. Anyway, we need to thank our sponsors. Harlan Hogan, of course, at VoiceOver Essentials.
VoiceOver Extra.
Edge Studio.
Source Elements.
VO2GoGo and the Rehearsal app at rehearsal.pro.
That's right. Antland Productions and his killer demos.
All righty.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that help us bring you this show error-free, technically perfect every single week. All righty.
I don't know what they did this week. No, you'll have no idea. By the time you guys see this show will be perfection, seamless, no screw-ups.
Stitched together.
Andrew's going to be here till 3 in the morning.
That's
Sorry,
right.
Andrew.
All righty. Thanks to Marcy for letting us do this in our backyard every week. Our producer, Catherine Curran, for getting us great guests like Brian Sommer, a real expert in his field.
Anthony Gettig for being in the chat room tonight, getting those questions to us.
Despite the fact that he was half asleep.
Mm-hmm.
Got in at like 4 a.m. this morning. Let's see. Andrew.
That guy.
Andrew Bushwitz, our amazing director, who's now taking over a lot of stuff, and he's learning.
Every week,
it's getting more and more
throw
perfect.
him in the freaking fire, and this week was no exception because he had to completely rebuild the entire show production system tonight before the show.
Right. And of course, Jack DeGolia for the show notes and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to do it for us this week. It's exactly 7:30 here on the coast. All right. We're right on time, and it's time to go back to your regular lives. So we'll take care of turning off our control of your computer, and we will see you in 2 weeks, hopefully with Sylvia Vilgrand.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Dan Leonard.
And I'm George Whittam.
And this is VoiceOver
Body Shop.
Or VO.